we have now Crowder's in North Carolina, so obviously you can't watch Local 10. But here in the studios, we have Local 10 up, and they are live at the Elbo Room in Fort Lauderdale, and it is a party. And the party began early this morning, and the Stanley Cup has been in the ocean and been filled with beer, and we will monitor the goings-on of the Stanley Cup as it makes its way, I'm guessing, throughout South Florida. I want to know who takes it to Churromania at Sawgrass Mills Mall, because that would be a very South Florida stop.
No.
Josh Appel, yeah, absolutely has to go to Churromania.
Churromania.
Yeah, it's right across the street.
That has nothing to do with South Florida.
They have delicious churros. That's insulting. How dare you?
They go to Rainforest Cafe before.
Rainforest Cafe for sure, but then you go to Churromania. I mean, that's the normal stop when you're going to the Sawgrass Mills anyway. You got to go to Rainforest Cafe and then Churromania.
Take it to the beach. Who about to take it to Tootsie's? I want to see the Stanley Cup in Tootsie's.
Well, Josh Appel is in studio with us here in Miami. Now, how did you end up at the Elbo Room? Did you just know that that's where the party was going to be, or hold your thought there?
It's 305. Dale. God bless.
Dale.
Thank you, Jimmy.
You're welcome. Vamos Gatos, mother.
He is feeling it. Guy's had a lot of Prosecco, and he is feeling it.
I saw him at the Elbo Room, too.
He was he's in Italy. He sent us pictures next to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So, and Jimmy watched the game last night. Dr. Chuck is in Spain. They gathered around the family computer last night, found an illegal stream, and it began at 2 a.m., and they were hooting and hollering at 5 a.m. in their Airbnb in Spain. And now Spain hates the Metzgers.
Well, 2 a.m. in Spain is dinner time anyways, isn't it?
They do things a little bit later there. So Josh Appel, though, who is the Marlins public address announcer and our longtime friend and huge Panthers fan, he was at the Elbo Room. You have a picture with the Stanley Cup. Now, how did that transpire?
So last night, a few buddies of mine decided to head to the Elbo Room because we had heard that they might be bringing the cup there last night. And we also wanted to go out in general and celebrate. So we went to the Elbo Room, and we waited and we waited and we waited. We were having a good time, and the cup never showed up. So you know what? They probably went their own way, just party with themselves. Makes total sense.
Churromania.
Sure, exactly. Rainforest Cafe, GameWorks. Cafe. GameWorks, the movie theater.
Sure.
Grand Lux.
Yeah.
All the above.
All the above.
Bahama Breeze.
Right. Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips.
So,
but go on.
so we Johnny Rockets.
All right, we got it.
So we got home.
All the shops at the Oasis. But go ahead.
Lululemon. So I got home around 3:30ish, something like that. And I was gonna sleep in and just kind of get the day going and just be happy, and somehow realize that the Panthers did something that I had dreamed about my entire life last night. And I see on social media when I woke up that the cup was at the Elbo Room. The cup was on Las Olas. The cup was in the ocean. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get myself out of bed. Mara, I feel bad because she was at work, so she couldn't come with me. I got in the car, went to the Elbo Room, got upstairs. OJ McDuffie and I celebrating together with the cup. It was unbelievable.
OJ McDuffie, another guy who has adopted the Panthers over the course, and he's very good friends with Goldie, obviously, and he's another guy who's adopted the Panthers over the years. So it was just a sea of Panthers fans and Panthers players and the Stanley Cup at the Elbo Room.
Yeah, I would say about half the roster was there by the end of it, and then they cleared it around the time, probably around like noon. But I mean, Keith Tkachuk was there drinking out of the cup. A bunch of the parents were there, staff members, players. Casey from Funky Buddha was there. He drank out of the cup.
That guy will follow the cup all over South Florida. Wherever it ends up, Casey is going to be there.
It literally, like, it does not, none of this feels real, right? Like, it is the most surreal thing I think I've ever experienced. And
well, let me ask you, because we were talking about this in the 2 o'clock hour. I had said, 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago when we were doing game 4 or game 5, I guess, we were at the arena and Cunha stops by and Will Manso and Plagans and Goldie. And we're all asking each other the same question. do you think you'll cry when, like, we assumed we were going to win it game 5.
Yeah.
And it was like, do you think you'll cry? Do you think Paul Maurice will cry? Like, we had done this whole thing. And they asked me, do you think I'll cry? And I said, no chance. The sport event could never make me do that. But I was shocked last night. Crowder the same. I was shocked. Like, I didn't cry. But if someone had handed me a mic at that moment where it happened, because I had this weird, like, I didn't know the emotion that I was about to feel. I did not anticipate it. Had someone handed me a microphone and said, tell us how you're feeling right now, I think I would have choked up and started crying, because I had this, and I'm imagining you who has put so much effort and emotion and, I mean, money into the team, buying tickets. I mean, for
50-50 tickets.
50-50 tickets. Have you ever won the raffle?
I did. I won it.
You did?
You didn't know this?
No.
Yeah, I won
What?
it.
This is amazing.
Fittingly, I had won it pre-pandemic, like a midweek game against Calgary. So
$400.
pretty much. But like, that's what we talk about, where there's nobody going to these games.
Did you see how much it was in Edmonton, Crowder?
No.
It was millions.
$8 million.
No.
$8 million. Now, I believe you can buy tickets like probably online at home, but obviously they're a little more hockey.
Probably
mad.
series long too.
But you won like $500 at the 50-50.
It was the game before a weekend game against Montreal. So the 50-50 pot when I won it was like 12. So I got half of that.
$600.
Yeah, which is great. Which was great. I'm not going to complain about winning the 50-50.
Right.
But the next game, the 50-50 winner went home with like 20 grand. So the game off.
Anyway, so you've invested money and time and energy and emotion in this Panthers team for as long as you've been a kid here in South Florida. So it happens last night. Tell us what goes on. Do you cry?
I absolutely teared up. Mara teared up as well, but like I got like chills when it happened. And I'll tell you, I cried a second time when I got home from Elbo Room and I rewatched the celebration and I watched some of the interviews when I saw Will Weedo bawling on the ice. Watching Alexander Barkov and Aaron Ekblad and like Dmitry Kulikov, who was drafted by this franchise in 2009, played in 2 playoff series here, lost them both, 2012 and 2016, went to 7 other teams before coming back here. And he made a highlight play that will be a signature play in the history of Panther hockey forever, sweeping the puck out of the crease next to Sergei Bobrovsky, springing Sam Reinhart on his rush up the ice to score the game-winning goal. Really cool full circle moment for him. Kyle Okposo, who they acquired from Buffalo, who got to lift the cup. Like, just the relief.
I mean, he came here for that.
Yeah, like the relief on some of these guys' faces, like Roberto Luongo firing up the crowd before the game and then lifting the cup over his head. I know that he obviously, who doesn't wherever you play, but I obviously he wanted one with Vancouver. They famously blew a 2-0 lead. They just made a documentary about the riots in Vancouver after they lost. But like, to see him as a Panthers employee lifting the cup, that was incredible.
I had a moment when I watched that too, because I was thinking to myself, had they won game 5, I don't know if Jack Nicklaus could have lifted the cup over his head. Certainly not on the ice.
Respectfully to Jack, he could barely lift the drums.
Bing, 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 bing.
But you know what? You got like a tale of 2 drummers there, because like Luongo was almost too fast and like it was like I was like, hey, settle down, Roberto.
How can he settle down? It's game 7.
No, he tweeted out. He effing brought it.
But I think part of why I was so emotional, besides the fact that they won, it's because the 3-game stretch where it looked like the entire I was a wreck yesterday. The entire day. I left the house.
He texted me in the morning, I'm not doing well.
I've been playing Wordle and Dordle and all them with Hawken and Witty.
Wordle and Octagle.
I'm back on that train.
Quordle.
And my first 2 guesses yesterday on Wordle was choke and on Dordle was dread.
His thoughts were dark.
It was such a like the sense of relief to like not be the team that collapsed, but the team that shut down Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl at home, and just I can't believe it. I cannot believe it.
Josh, you bring that up because we talked. Draisaitl didn't do anything all series, but then what they did to Connor McDavid last night, and who was it? Messier and PK Subban were bringing it up during the breaks where they were like, they're not going to let Connor McDavid beat them. The way they were, putting two on him and all that stuff. And when I teared up, Josh, I don't know if you heard it earlier, is when Paul Maurice grabbed the trophy, was whispering to it, and he put it over his head. He didn't scream. He had his eyes closed because you could see the culmination of 30-plus years of hockey come around. And that's when I cried, though. The Paul Maurice criticism should come to an end right now, shouldn't it?
Absolutely. I love that man. Like,
how could you not?
It is. He is so genuine, and everybody who works with him and works the team says the same thing. It's not a put on. That is how he is. And the other thing, like when he lifted the cup, and you saw the players react to it too, that was incredible. I can't remember who I was listening. Maybe it was Greg Wyshynski on the ESPN. This is how deep in the weeds I was watching post-game content last night. Greg Wyshynski and Arda Ocal for ESPN doing their post-game podcast.
I love their podcast.
I think one of them said, like, Maurice lifting the cup.
It's the divot. It's very close to the pivot.
Maurice lifting the cup was like Ray Bourque finally lifting the cup when he won it, because like Paul Maurice had coached the most games in NHL history without winning a cup. He has been, as you said, Crowder, in the league for 30 years. He is a hockey lifer. He is top 5 in like every category, and he's top 5 in, or maybe 1 or 2 in most losses ever.
He has one knock on him.
Yeah, and it's the call. You could see the release of emotion from him, but like, not that he's viewed as a punchline per se, but like
he would have if they had lost. Been. Yeah. And he acknowledged that in one of the post-game interviews that I saw. That's what he acknowledged. He's like, I know what this meant for me.
Yeah.
And he talked about, like, this is 30 years of me making excuses to my friends and family as to why we couldn't win it. Like, he was very aware. Very rarely do you get a coach that will acknowledge that, who will acknowledge that. I was watching the JJ Redick introductory press conference, and anything they ask him, he's like, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. And it's hard to imagine that nothing matters to someone when they're hearing it constantly and they're, part of, this larger conversation about something. Paul Maurice was very honest and open. Like, I know what everyone was saying, and this was a huge deal.
That's part of why I appreciate him so much as a coach, is because like he's just himself. And he lets you know what he's thinking. He'll get into the coach speak and the cliches every now and again, but he does that with like a wink and a nod.
Right.
Like he is, like I said, he is genuine, and that is how he is, and the honesty and just like the authenticity of how he carries himself. It makes you appreciate it and him so much more. Like it was truly like, I cannot believe that. It was one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had in my life.
Somebody texts in, because imagine now if this is the Dolphins and you've got people waiting since 72. Yeah. Somebody says, I will literally bleep myself. Like, I will poop on myself because crying will not be enough if the Dolphins win the Super Bowl. Like,
I mean, we saw Solana's videos last night in Miami of. Sorry, Crowder, go ahead.
What did they? That's what?
They will poop themselves.
That's nasty.
Well, listen, sometimes you can't control your emotions. Sometimes you can't control your
bowels. That's not emotion. That's bowels.
Right. Sometimes you can't control that.
You literally peed yourself in losses, Crowder.
Yeah. And wins.
No, and wins. I peed myself purposely.
A lot more losses.
Solana. I don't know my win-loss record, but I would say you're probably right.
Play
around
sound.
500.
Play this sound from Paul Maurice. We have some sound from Paul Maurice. So this is after the game. I don't know. I'm sure everyone's heard this by now, but it's just so worth listening to, talking about how you don't win the Stanley Cup, you share it.
There's a whole bunch of things you don't know until you get there. You don't win a Stanley Cup. I didn't win the Stanley Cup tonight. I got to share it. And that is a completely different idea. Not that I thought this was all about me. I certainly didn't. I mean, you replace me tomorrow. That's a good hockey team. But that's what I learned. You don't win a Stanley Cup. You share it. You get to share it.
And again, most coaches who would say that, I would say that's shtick. You're full of bleep. You're being self-effacing. You're being humble, and you don't really mean that. And with him, I buy it 100%.
100%. He's been that guy since he got hired. If you go back and watch his Winnipeg, I don't know why he would do this, but if you go back and watch some of his Winnipeg press conferences, he is this guy. It's how he's always been. And some criticize the hire because it's a retread and he hasn't had the success that you would want. You fire a guy who just won the President's Trophy, yada, 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 yada. But like that authenticity and like bringing that into the room, like they talk so much about how I also appreciated when he said they could fire me tomorrow and this team would still be really good.
Like how many coaches would say that, by
Yeah.
the way, right after winning a championship? How many coaches would diminish what they bring? Because I saw another interview that he did, and he's like, my role in this is so small. He's like, these guys are great players. They know what to do. He's like, I'm not telling you that I don't have anything to do with it, but he's like, my role, I know where I fit, in the pie chart of this team's success.
Yeah, his work, he said, basically was the end of the game on whatever the game 6 was to the start of game 7, preparing the team for that.
And then it's on them.
And then once the game goes, he's just trying to get the guys going on the bench and just trying to like that's the biggest thing that I can tell and that he talks about too is like he just has such a good pulse and such a good idea for how this team is feeling on the bench, how they're feeling in the room. He knows the right things to say. And man, like to see it pay off like this for them when for like we talk about Paul Maurice, but I'm going to actually call him by his real name now. When we talk about Bill Zito balling on the ice, like think of the huge swings that guy took to get to this spot, right? He blows up the core of a President's Trophy team. That was one of the most exciting teams in hockey. Brings in a guy in Matthew Tkachuk, doesn't rehire the interim coach that led them to a President's
And by the
Trophy.
way, it doesn't just blow up the team, but gets rid of one of the few beloved Florida Panthers in Jonathan Huberdeau.
Mackenzie Weegar was getting to that point too, despite how his series against Tampa went before they traded him. But like, and then they had the shot of him throwing the water bottle against the wall at the end of game 5.
Very much like Ken Dorsey. Ken Dorsey seemed to get a lot more criticism than Bill Zito in that situation.
Tomato.
All right.
Apples and oranges. I don't think I used the right phrase there.
Either
I'm just on still Elbo Room.
It's like when Crowder just shouts out CTE. You just shout out Elbo Room.
Elbo Room. But like the relief that Bill Zito must have felt last night, like I'd imagine that's where the emotion comes from for him because of all the giant swings he took and all the criticism too. The Paul Maurice hire was not popular at the time. Some of these trades, not popular at the time. I remember he got ripped for the Montour trade, ripped for the Bennett trade as overpays. He had some, the Ben Sherratt one wasn't great, but, they ended up going to the Cup last year, so it didn't matter. Like, he has pushed the buttons 90%, maybe more, made up stat, correct, throughout his tenure here. And again, to see it pay off for guys in the organization who took such massive swings to get to this point makes it so much better.
If I would have told you after what happened in 2022 with the Tampa Bay Lightning, this loss right here, as painful as it is going to be the best thing that ever happened to the Panthers organization, you would have had me drug tested, and not to give the Tampa Bay Lightning any credit, but them kicking the Panthers' ass and sweeping them in 2022 ended up being, literally, because of all the dominoes that fell after, ended up being the best thing that ever happened. Because if the Panthers win that series but don't end up winning the Cup, you could argue they would have kept Huberdeau. They would have, they wouldn't have made all the changes that were necessary to get to this point.
Even if they don't get swept, maybe if they lose in 6, they lose in 7, maybe they run it back the next year. But like it is just, I've talked about this before on the air. Like you have to go through, I always thought the cliche, you have to go through some adversity first, before, especially in hockey, to finally get to that point where they got last night. I think back to that series, obviously the Vegas series last year, they had to go through so much. And I think that John Cooper kind of said this when he was on the TNT panel during the playoffs about how much respect he had for this current iteration of the Panthers. Like, the Panthers Bill Zito saw what it takes to get to and win a cup, losing to that Tampa Bay Lightning team. They experienced it last year when they lost to that Vegas team. And they talked about the mindset immediately from training camp. And it's crazy because I've never trusted a team more in my entire life, but never had more doubts about that same exact team yesterday. But this is the team that we've seen all year that, like, when it comes down to it, when the pressure's on in a big spot, like, they don't get rattled. They don't get phased. They're so mentally tough. They just keep things simple. They iced the puck a million times in the third period last night. But outside of that breakaway in the first period where Edmonton scored, like, maybe you count on one hand the amount of scoring chances that Edmonton had the entire game. They played so well. And for guys that took some heat over the last 3 games, like Brandon Montour and Carter Verhaeghe, forget the goal and the assist. Obviously, Verhaeghe was great in that regard. But away from the puck, supporting the puck, Montour defensively, Montour and Mikkola were the best pairing the Panthers had last night. They were phenomenal. Ekman Larson and Kulikov, great. Obviously, Forsling and Ekblad gave up the breakaway in the first, but Ekblad had an incredible poke check on Connor McDavid. I couldn't remember in the second and third period, but they were 1v1 going in on Bob, and Ekblad just, like it was nothing, poked it off his stick and just took the play away.
It's
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, no, Josh, to speak of that side of it, where Evan, what's his name, Rodriguez.
Oh, he should have gotten the Conn Smythe. If it was just the finals, he should have gotten the Conn Smythe.
He balled out. He was playing well out, but he told me after the post-game press conference what I was trying to say. He said we were pressing offense in game 4, 5, and 6. We were trying to score. That's not what we do. He said now we play defense. We're a 2-1 team. He called it 2-1 filthy. He said we need to play 2-1 filthy. That's what you saw last night. The little cute Edmonton offensive setups where they had the 2 guys in the wing and they're flipping it around to each other. It didn't work. And the Panthers would just go up, run up, and steal the 50-50 pucks, out physical them. That's what they didn't do in those 3 games we lost. Last night they went back to what I assume is what you've been saying. That was Paul ball last night, right?
Paul ball. I can't believe it took us 26 minutes for me to drop a Paul ball.
But that's the amazing thing, too, about Bill Zito bringing in Paul Maurice. Imagine if it's football saying, yeah, we know you like watching 55 points get put on the board every weekend. It's exciting and it's fun. We're going to bring in a new coach that wants to put up 14 points because they're going to hold the other team to less. And that's what we went like. Talk about a swing for the fences where you go, yeah, not only are we getting rid of Jonathan Huberdeau and your President's Trophy winning coach, but we're bringing in a coach who's going to take away all that offense and we're going to make it a playoff style. And we're like, well, this doesn't seem like fun because we're chanting we want 10 during games. This doesn't seem like anything. Like Bill Zito, and you talk about swinging for the fences and having very little room for error. And he hit on just about everything.
When's this guy going to get GM of the year? It's enough already. Back-to-back years nominated for General Manager of the Year and hasn't.
Do you have the sound, Solana, Bill Zito being interviewed post-game on ABC?
Bill, so many of the guys talked about how special this group of players was. Tell me about the identity you were looking to build in the Florida Panthers.
I think the perfect example of that was earlier in the series, Matthew gave a game puck to our team services guy. I won't tell you why. That doesn't happen. That's leadership. That's kindness. That's how all these guys treat each other. I know it's a superlative, and I know you hear it every time someone wins something, but it's different.
So what type of players are you looking for?
Good ones. 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. We only have 3 days now, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the draft is Friday. So it's we're very blessed with our coaching staff and our players, and Vinny empowers us, and it's really humbling, and it's really, I don't know, everybody who's done it says to you now, you know, it's like when you don't know what love is until you have a kid, right? And the baby comes out like, oh, I don't know what, that's kind of how I feel.
You took a chance and hired Paul Maurice. Why was he the right man? Okay, so tell me, why was he the right man for this group?
Well, if you ever interact with him, you can tell right away. He has the hockey acumen. Most importantly, his character, he's perceptive, and he has emotional intelligence. And he knows how to treat people and get the most out of guys.
What's the most gratifying part about this for you?
I have my dad here. I have my dad here.
I'm glad you can go celebrate with him. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Chills.
Wow. Right?
Chills.
Wow, that's awesome.
All right, let's take a break. We have a lot of sound to listen to, so we'll take a break here and we'll come back. We'll got to do headlines too. I'm just thinking, do you want to do a quick look at headlines, or you want to wait till the next segment?
Yeah, the Panthers won the Cup. The Marlins lost last night. Headlines.
Well, it's kind of Solana's area. You're just kind of stepping on his toes now. Hey, Stolars, why don't you get back on the bench here?
Elbo Room.
Why don't you let Bobrovsky do his work here?
If we needed you to read the Celsius liner, we would have come to you. Okay, Bill?
You want to do a quick look at the headlines?
Yeah, I'll run through something real quick. They're driven by the new Palmetto Ford Truck Super Center. Why buy your truck at a car store? Palmetto Ford. We know trucks. So the Conn Smythe Trophy did go to Connor McDavid, which is weird because in game 6 and 7, he had 0 points, 0 assists, and 0 goals because the Florida Panthers kicked his ass.
These headlines or an editorial? What happened? I mean, he really put the con in Conn Smythe. I've been workshopping that since last night.
Best player in the world.
All right.
Will Manto tweeted out, by the way, the Panthers team store at the arena, Pantherland, that they're selling Stanley Cup merch fast and furious. He said all that's left right now is gray shirts, pucks, decals, and some posters. Hats and more stuff is coming Thursday.
I'm sure everyone's going to be geared up by the time. You can always go to Caneswear. My friends at Caneswear get geared up by Sunday for the parade and the rally. Listen, you don't want to be the ticket wizard walking around in a Radek Dvorak jersey. Okay, you want some new stuff.
Hold on,
no, you want some new stuff. I'm sorry,
you want to be walking around in a Radek Dvorak.
You want to throw back. Go get Dmitry Kulikov, and you get the old and the new. You don't want to be walking around as Radek Dvorak. Okay, and great guy. You don't want to be walking around as Radek Dvorak.
Well, Stanley Cup, some beer right out of the Stanley Cup. You drink it
about it, or maybe a little way.
Gosh, you drank out of the cup?
I didn't drink out of the cup. I just held it.
How did you end up holding the cup? Like you were holding it on your own?
Yeah.
Is that on your social media?
Yeah.
Where's that? Where can people find
at Josh Appel on Twitter, at Josh _Appel on
Instagram. Appel. You're holding the Stanley Cup as if you're a player.
Yeah, which looking back is kind of absurd.
Did OJ McDuffie get to hold it up?
Yes, he did.
He has a badass.
He does.
OJ McDuffie on his socials. I don't remember what it is. Like OJ McDuffie 81, I think, but he has a badass picture of him hoisting the cup above his head on the corner of the balcony at Elbo Room.
Isn't Kachuk in the photo too?
I think he is. Yeah, Kachuk is in the photo. Yeah, that's a badass picture.
Kachuk's bald head isn't mine.
Is it heavy? They were acting like it's real heavy.
34 pounds, they said.
So
in the post game.
It's not awful, but you guys know me. I didn't want to be the guy that.
Well, you're a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, that, and I didn't want to lift it above my head and be the one that like drops it. It already had a couple dents, but I didn't want to be the one that added another. So I just held it comfortably, took my picture, and put it back down. Okay, I got my time with the cup.
Okay, just became my cousin Vinny all of a sudden.
What is this?
Okay, all right. Here's what I did. I picked it up. I put it down. Okay, all right.
How many grits? They come from corn.
34 pounds. Yeah,
that doesn't seem right.
Well, I don't know. Talk to Gary Bettman. That's what it is.
I guess Gary Bettman don't know what's going on. His little speech at the end.
That's our friend.
I know, but he wasn't excited enough for me with the speech.
I think he felt bad having to give the Conn Smythe to Connor McDavid in front of this crowd that had just gone crazy for their first cup. I don't think he knew exactly how to navigate that.
Did McDavid come out to collect the cup? He didn't.
No, he did not.
He was crying.
Yeah,
I saw him.
Really cool that in the NHL, they hand the cup. The first person to touch the cup is a player from the team. And not that there's anything wrong with the executives, but
Right, where
you
they
see
hand it to the
owner.
team president or
Uh-huh.
the owner. Yeah.
No, like Barkov came out, grabbed the damn cup, and then they got to skate around with it rather than the owner or the executive coming in.
Barkov and Ekblad being here for a decade plus each.
Yeah.
Going through some dark times.
I mean, did you see Ekblad's or a Barkov's draft picture?
Yeah.
And what he looked like then, what he looks like now.
It's a man.
He's a man.
He's a man.
Yeah.
And the first Finn
The first Finn
Yeah.
to hold the cup first.
as a captain. Yep.
Yeah.
I am proud of that.
Fins up.
Fins up.